I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to think of the Spiderwick Chronicles going into it. I mean, for example, yeah, Harry Potter was still active at the time that this movie had come out. It had 2, although then it was announced not long after this 3 more movies before it was going to conclude for the time being. This, much like Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, was based on multiple books as opposed to just one book. Although at the same time, I don't think I learned this until recently, but this was never really planned for sequels. While it's clear that Lemony Snicket was, and maybe this wasn't planned for sequels because Lemony Snicket wasn't as successful as it could have been. And that's a shame because it's actually a really good movie. Yeah, it's strange to think that this one slipped under the radar for so many years. It still kind of does. Here's the plot. A young boy named Jared Grace, played by Freddie Highmore, has just recently moved into a new, or rather, old house owned by his great aunt, with his recently divorced mother Helen, played by Mary-Louise Parker, his older sister Mallory, played by Sarah Bolger, and his twin brother Simon, also played by Highmore. Jared is struggling to get over the fact that his parents split up and is not pleased with the moving arrangements. But then strange things begin happening in the house that possibly are linked to the supernatural, and sure enough, Jared and his siblings figure out exactly why. Because creatures live around his households that his great uncle Arthur Spiderwick, played by David Strathairn, had recorded in a book for years and years and protected with an enchantment around the house. The reason for the protection for this book that has numerous details on every single supernatural creature connected to nature in the world, well, it's because the evil ogre Moggarath, played by Nick Nolte, wants to get a hold of the book so he can destroy all life around him and pretty much conquer everything around him. So the kids have to set out to try to prevent ward off the monsters and prevent them from getting the book, thanks to the help of a hobgoblin named Hogsqueal, voiced by Seth Rogen, a house brownie named Thimbletack, played by Martin Short, and their great aunt Lucinda, Spiderwick's daughter, played by Joan Plowright. Can the kids prove what's going on to their mother and guarantee the safety of everything good from Moggarath? So, yeah, I remember thinking to myself, this movie was not getting off to the best start when I was watching it. I thought that the main issue it had starting out was that it seemed to have too much of a focus on just distinguishing how Jared caused issues and made things difficult. Was making things difficult for his family with him struggling to adjust to the situation. But at the same time, this, and all throughout the movie as well, I gave credit to both Highmore and Bolger for their performances because, much like in the same way as Liam Aiken and Emily Browning and Lemony Snicket, but in a different way. For instance, Highmore has to play 2 different characters who are fairly different from each other, and in that sense he has to interact with Sarah Bolger as these separate characters and have chemistry with her on both accounts, and Bolger has to be able to interact with him doing both performances and have chemistry with him on both accounts. The fact that these two were able to do that, I give them a lot of credit. They really pulled it off. In addition to that, this movie gets surprisingly violent. A little more violent than I would have expected a PG rating to get. I mean, with the scene of, after an attack from the goblins, the leader of which played by Ron Perlman, who went uncredited for this, there's a rather shocking scene where You have Mallory desperately trying to clean Simon's wounds while she's also desperately trying to clean her own. And it's really discerning, and yeah, it's going to make kids uncomfortable. But at the same time, I think it's a discomfort that really works. It really puts you in the moment. It really makes you feel the horror of what happens. And it blew my mind. Not to mention the fact that I thought the digital effects were really good. I thought the voice work of the actors, heck, Seth Rogen was barely recognizable, was done well. Nick Nolte, he's hamming it up, but at the same time, I think it works because he's hamming it up, but even then, he's not going too far overboard with it. He's going just overboard enough, and he's really making it work for that reason. He's really making you feel that this is a dangerous menace who is somebody you absolutely are afraid to deal with because, well, he's a violent, crazy monster who will stop at nothing to kill no matter what. And the fact that, yeah, we had someone like that with Dag and Barnyard, but at the same time, the fact that we get someone like that in a better Nickelodeon movie, I think you can great credit for it on that. I wasn't too fond of Mary-Louise Parker's performance in the film because, yeah, well, I felt like I get what she was trying to do. She was trying to play the angle of trying to process what was going on with her in her own life, but at the same time trying to be able to process what was going on with the kids too, even if she didn't believe right away what all this stuff involving the supernatural elements. Heck, Joan Plowright, she gives a hell of a good performance in this film, and yeah, she really brings some pathos to this story as well. Aside from the beginning going on a little too long, and the build-up to when Mallory and Simon do realize that Jared's telling the truth about everything that's going wrong, I do think that the other complaint I have about this film, but actually it's maybe not more of a complaint, but just a bizarre styling choice. The ending kind of turns into Home Alone with the bits of them fighting and defending the house from the creatures from Ogres and the creatures trying to invade it. And on that aside, though, it's still a really well done, impressive sequence. And again, the fact that these visuals are pulled off so spectacularly in a Nickelodeon movie of all things, yeah, this is something that's worth praising. And my God, the score from James Horner, I don't think any score of any Nickelodeon movie matches its film anywhere near as well as this score does. This score was breathtaking. And it's just another reason to miss the talents of James Horner and really wish that he was still here and still giving us amazing musical compositions in films. So yeah, this was a pleasant surprise in almost the same way as Mad Hot Ballroom. And yeah, I mean, granted, both of those movies have gotten positive reception, and I was hoping to like both of them going in, but I certainly got different things from each one that I expected, and yeah, that is something worthwhile, something worth note. And the fact that we could get these things in this film, and the fact that you can feel the sense of urgency with this film that you do with every second of it, by the point that things really take off. I mean, this is a kids' film that is overlooked and that should get more credit. So take it for what it's worth, and you'll find there's quite a bit to read into.